Hello students, and welcome to week 2 of our English 290. This is our first real hybrid week. So I'm going to start off by talking to you a little bit about the chronological resume that you're going to be producing this week. As you can see on the screen here, I have the syllabus pulled up, the course calendar that shows your required work for Monday. So by the end of the day on Monday, 11:59 p.m., you need to respond to 2 peers' introductions from last week on the discussion board. So then the next thing you're going to start working on is your resume. This comes from chapter 15 in your textbook, and I'm going to be focusing on a few aspects of that chapter during this little video. I'll also show you where your resume will be available on our Learn site. So what you're going to be creating for this course is a chronological resume. Some of you might have created a resume in another class, perhaps English 219. We are going to replicate that assignment, but hopefully if you're taking this class at a different time than 219, you'll have some more information to put on your resume. It's always important to keep your resume up to date. I'm asking you to create a chronological resume rather than a skills resume, because a chronological resume suits students who are still in college most appropriately. So in chapter 15 of your textbook, there's a lot of information at the beginning of the chapter about how you search for jobs online. I'm not going to be talking to you about that information, but it's still good for you to read, obviously. So I want you to read the whole chapter before getting to the chronological resume part, which starts on 398. One of the things that your book asks you to do, which I think is a really good idea if you're writing your resume from scratch, is just spending some time basically brainstorming. As Markel says, oh, you can hear my dog barking in the background. I apologize. As Markel says on page 388, you'll want to make a list, a long list, and this is a quote from him, of your experiences, characteristics, skills, accomplishments that will furnish the kinds of evidence you can use in establishing your professional brand, end quote. So this is a document like many other kinds of technical documents in which you're providing information in a concise fashion that is usable, a term that I stressed in class, usable in terms of the document's design and in terms of the information the document conveys. So all of the information on the document needs to be supportable by evidence. So if you start with this brainstorming exercise, making a list of all of the things about you, your academic accomplishments, your courses, your volunteer activities, your work experience, you'll have a lot of raw information from which to pull when it comes time to craft the resume itself. So I want to show you next the area in the course where your resume will be found. So this is Learn. This is my view, the instructor view. I have not yet, I'm recording this on Friday, I have not yet revealed the resume, but when you get to the student view on Monday, it will be here. It will say Turn in Resume here, and you'll click on it and you will see the assignment prompt. It's just a short little paragraph. And it says, please submit a resume that is a chronological resume featuring details of your A, identifying information, B, education, C, employment, D, and as pertinent, interests, activities, certifications, awards, or special skills. Each section should be chronological from the most recent to the oldest. Your document should use font, face, and size effectively, demonstrate appropriate and logical alignment, feature strong heading and subheading and glyph usage, and use sentences and phrase parallelism and effective verb-first phrasing using informative action verbs. And so more details are indicated by the grading rubric. And the grading rubric is right here. It's an Excel file, and you'll just download it. I have it up here. And here's the grading rubric. Let me zoom in for you a little bit here. You'll see that this is what's called an analytic rubric, and I just have some numbers in here. These are the maximum point values for each of these categories. So I have the resume rubric organized this way: overall organization, document style and design, mechanics, and content, and your total score is out of 50 points. So I will put your scores here in this column, and then I'll write you some feedback here at the bottom. So when you get your graded version of your resume back via Learn, I will have uploaded this rubric for you to see. You can read through all of the details that I ask for on your own time. I won't do it in this video, but I know that many of you, when you are recording, you're proceeding on the path of crafting your resume or revising your resume for this assignment, you'll look for examples online. I wanted to talk you through a few examples that I found that I think are pretty solid examples, and I'm going to explain to you why. So here is the OWL, the Online Writing Lab at Purdue, and in writing classes at UNM, and I'm sure at many other universities, instructors point students to the Online Writing Lab because there are examples for almost all writing scenarios on the Online Writing Lab. So they have an example here for a chronological resume, and they explain that this style of organization is very conservative, and it is most useful for people who have work experience in positions which are closely related to their desired employment. This style is also most suited to people who have not had long periods of unemployment between jobs. The format starts with the present or most recent job and progresses back in time. Another thing about the chronological resume is that it showcases your education, and since you're currently in school, you're really going to want to showcase that. So you'll see in the example that they have here in this little window, the resume begins with the student's name and address. These are in tidy blocks of information. They are aligned with clear alignment on the left-hand side. And then you'll see that the resume proceeds with hierarchical headings. So each heading of a certain type is the same design. So you'll see that career, objective, education, work experience, and honors and activities are all the same sort of heading. There are templates in Word that will allow you to have an easier job of making sure that you have that kind of consistency. But even if you do it without a template, you're going to want to be sure that the categories that you use are all of the same type for the same kind of information. Your book also has many, many examples, starting on page, let's see, 409 is a skills resume. But you can go through and look at the resumes in your book for examples. But when I say in your grading rubric that you need to make sure that you use headings and subheadings properly, alignment properly, and glyphs properly. A glyph is something like this bullet point here. Use a bullet point rather than a dash or an asterisk or something like that. A bullet point is a very clean, professional looking glyph that indicates that you're providing additional information below a heading. So here's education starting off first. The student is at Purdue University, Bachelor of Science in Landscape Architecture. And he says that he's a candidate and he should get the degree in May 2010. So you would want to say degree expected. That's another way of saying candidate. So degree expected and then the date. You'll also notice that this work address and the candidate information here, those are aligned. They're at the same spacing on the right-hand side of the page. You don't want the eye of your user to be too distracted by too many different indentation distances or column usages. So this one has 1, 2, and then 3, the left-hand margin, and 4, which is this glyph line. That is probably the most that you would want of different kind of indentations. Another thing I will show you is this other chronological resume before I come back to this one. This is on a resume site. They provide a lot of information. I haven't gone through this whole site, so I'm not endorsing it, but I just wanted to show the example of a resume down here, which uses a design style to separate the different categories, objective, education, experience. And then this is a 2-page resume. So your book says that length doesn't really matter for resumes anymore. I encourage my students to write a 1-page resume, but if you have a lot of experience or education experience, certainly don't give that information the short shrift by really condensing your resume to 1 page. Go on to 2 pages if you must. So you see that this woman's resume begins with her name and her address. This is not centered, which kind of bothers me. This address line should be centered under her name. And then she has her objective, what she wants is an internship, and then she has her education, her master's degree and her bachelor's degree. You'll see that her master's degree proceeds in this style. The name of the degree, the major, the focus, and the date that it is expected. The name of the school, the location, and her GPA. Now, if your GPA is embarrassingly low, you do not want to include your GPA, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Then you see that her next degree is a bachelor's degree in psychology and the date that she got it, the name of the college, the place, and the state, and that she had honors in psychology. Now, you can include other information in the education section. I encourage students to, if they're thin on information, to have another block indented section beneath education called relevant coursework. So let's say you're a computer science student and you're looking for an internship at Sandia in a certain group that focuses on a specific thing that you happen to have experience with through your coursework. So you would say relevant coursework, and then you would list the names of the classes. Not by their course number, but by their name. Their course number isn't relevant to somebody who doesn't know our course number designations here at UNM. So you'll see in her experience section, she's got the dates here where she worked. She's got the name of the company and its location. And she's got the title of her job. And then she uses these glyphs again, these bullet points, to explain what she did. Now your book, Mike Markel in your book talks about using verb first phrasing. I want you to do this. This is something that your rubric asks. Verb first phrasing is used in descriptions, so you're going to want to be sure that you do that. Provided, designed, developed, planned, engaged, taught, increased, collaborated, advocated, evaluated, taught, assisted. Those are all strong verbs that explain what this woman did in these positions. So she has a lot of work experience. One thing that you might notice in both of these examples is that the resumes do not end with references. It is assumed that you will be able to provide references if necessary. This resume on the OWL includes a section for honors and activities at the end. That is a great thing to include if you have some honors and activities. If you have other information that doesn't fall into any of these categories, like volunteer work or internships, you'll want to put those in their own sections. So hopefully I've given you a pretty straightforward overview of what I'm looking for in your resume here. Your book provides you excellent resources for crafting this resume. And if you go to the end of the chapter, the end of chapter 15, you'll see that there's a checklist on page 416 that can pace you through what some of the things are that a resume needs. So you'll follow that box. Does the resume include keywords? And those are words that if it was scanned and searched would pop up. If you had any computer programming skills that were useful, you would include those. If you were, a writer, you would want to include some of the word processing tools that you've used to do document preparation. So anything that would pop up in a scan and search by a human resource specialist. You'll see that the checklist also includes, does the identifying information include all the proper information? Does the resume include a clear summary of your qualifications? There's information about your education section, your employment section, your interest section, if there is one. Neither of the examples that I showed you here in this video have an interest section. And just a final note, excuse me, some international students or job applicants include a photo on their resumes. We do not do that in the United States, so you do not need to do that in yours. Always feel free to write to me if you have any questions about your resume. I've just shown you 2 examples here. You can read the prompt again, look at the rubric again, and remember that you need to post your resume by Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. and you need to respond to 2 peers by Friday at 11:59 p.m. So you will go to the discussion board to do that, and you will go to peer review resume here. And this gives you information about what I'm asking you to do in the peer review in this little paragraph. So that's all for now, and email me this week, our first out of class